Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to my new video where we are going to go over my top 5 tips I think every single Seraphine player needs to know. Now, my goal behind this video is to make you a better League of Legends player, as well as to give you a better understanding of the champion as a whole. There's going to be timestamps at every single point of my video because I heavily value you guys' time. They're going to be up at the top of the page, as well as they are going to be segmented in the scrolling bar down below. Now, if you want to contact me directly, there is going to be a link to my Discord and stream with any questions, feedbacks, cool builds, anything like that. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Next up, I am a bit limited with this format, only doing 5 tips. So if you want to add your own tips down below in the comments, maybe help out another person that is just coming along and watching the video. I really like seeing those really long detailed posts where people really get in depth with everything going on. So with all that out of the way, let's jump right into the video. Alright, and getting into tip number 1, we're going to cover a couple of basics that I think everyone needs to know before jumping into a game. First of all, your rune choice should be between Airy or Comet as a base rune. Now, Airy is going to be better against melee champions that you're constantly able to harass with your auto attacks, as well as you're able to get that extended range with your passive, so it can be extremely easy to proc your Airy. If you are under more threat, maybe you're against a champion like a Lux, or maybe something like a Nautilus that has a huge amount of threat at a decently long range, you might want to go for something like Comet, where you can take a very quick trade and get out. Now, next up, you really need to have a decent sized mana pool. This is achieved by either presence of mind, maybe an Archangel staff, maybe some mana flow band, or some mana regen items can be very helpful. Also, with Seraphine's playstyle, you always want to have max CDR because it allows you to get more echoes off in the team fights, which is really going to be where a lot of her power comes from. Now, next up, let's talk about how well she scales with slows. If you can see right here, a basic echoed E on Seraphine is going to root the target. Now, if you are running things like Exhaust, or you have an Ashe auto attacking the champion and slowing them, it is going to turn into a stun, which is just going to be 10 times more invaluable in teamfights because it disallows auto attacking using certain summoner spells and the like. Now, next up, I think a core item that is going to be on Seraphine, particularly when you have a low CC team, is Rylai's, because with a echoed E, it is going to stun the target without any other previous slows. Now, things like GLP and Glacial Augment will work as long as we have them, but they are going to be taken out of the game in Season 11. So just something to keep in mind when you are looking to put together your builds and runes when you're playing Seraphine. And that will wrap up tip number 1. Alright, and getting into tip number 2, let's go over Seraphine's flashy plays. Now, she is able to E-flash and R-flash her abilities, which are going to be extremely effective engagement tools. I will display it just right now, so all you want to do is tap E and then into the flash. Next up, we can do a R flash, and this is just going to increase the overall range, and it is really going to throw off the enemy because they think they are at a safe range away from you and they do not think they can get stunned at that certain rate. How you can look to amplify the effectiveness of this is by throwing your flash plays out from Fog of War, and by making sure that you have vision control with either sweepers or control wards can really set up some great plays, and is going to be optimal for when you have a ally coming to gank. So if you see maybe you have an allied Kha'Zix and he's looking to gank, you can look to set up the play by getting into the bush and setting up a R flash on the enemy. Now, you don't have to instantly R flash, as it is a pretty long channel. You can wait for a little bit on the R and then flash about halfway through the bar that loads up. As you can see, when I press R, it shows that encore bar coming up, so you can wait a little bit longer so it goes as soon as you flash in, really minimizing the most amount of time for them to react. And this is how you should really look to increase your overall skill, by getting really good combos set up with these different flash plays. And that will wrap up tip number 2. Alright, and getting into tip number 3, there are 2 abilities that you really need to keep track of when you are playing Seraphine, because they rely around missing health on targets. And that first is your Q as well as your W. Now, tip is going to be a lot more important on your W, because you are most likely in trades when you are playing out in either the bot lane or the mid lane. You want to get the most effectiveness out of your heal that you might be throwing out to look to get as much defensive power in these trades as possible. So the last thing you would want to do would be to echo a W and get the heal when both of you are first starting the trade, because what this is going to do is it's going to just restore a minimal amount of health loss that you are going to get on that trade. So you want to, if you are looking to echo the W, you are going to want to save that for later in the trade, maybe the second echo of your different trades. Now with the Q high note, it's a bit of a shorter cooldown, so you don't have to be as careful with using its echo. You do want to look for different burst trades when you are looking to surprise them with a good amount of damage when they are on that lower threshold of life. So if you didn't know, when they get under 25%, it starts doing a really nice big bonus execute amount of damage. So say you have a Q up and the target is at 30% and you have a very consistent damage ADC like Ashe, you might want to wait for the target to get a little bit lower. Maybe looking to use your W or looking to reposition, chasing them further down the lane, and then throwing out your Q when they are at about 25% of their health totals. And that will wrap up tip number 3. Alright, and getting into tip number 4, let's go over some team fighting tips with Seraphine. Now, she is the ultimate backliner. You really should be taking full advantage of her range, particularly with her ult. It pretty much goes completely off screen if you hit a couple of champions that increase the different amount of range with Seraphine's ult. And with your ability to shield with your W and peel with your E, you should be consistently looking to peel off the enemy divers off of your backline. Now this meta currently has a lot of divers and I am not enjoying it too much because I like playing mages a lot, but that is the current meta that we're in. So always look to be playing at a very long range. Look to play her out a bit like a Lux. She's basically a Sona with a lot longer of a range. Finally, with team fights, she is extremely good with line skill shots, and how you take full advantage of line skill shots is waiting for the enemies to fully commit to a fight. You do not want to use your ult before they commit to the fight, because when enemies tend to start up team fights, they do tend to clump up when they're all starting to try and focus a particular target. Now, also with her line skill shots and her really strong amount of AoE, looking to fight in the jungle is going to be an extremely effective way to play out Seraphine in the team fight. So consistently look for picks and team fights in the enemies and your jungle. It is going to be very effective. And that will wrap up tip number 4. Alright, and getting into the final tip, I want to talk about the amount of kill pressure you can add with this frankly broken passive, with so many different things coming out of it, from your echo to your ability to really use all the notes and gain attack range and additional damage. Now, when you are looking for kills on Seraphine and you are really looking for a nice big all-in with maybe a R flash play, building up these notes passive can be absolutely devastating. As you can see here, it maxes out at 12 notes and it comes out like a bunch of rockets when you throw out that auto. That amount of burst damage is very, very insane and can be extremely strong in the difference in team fights, the difference in your laning phase skirmishes, and all of that. Now, how you build up the notes is obviously by just hitting your abilities and not autoing, because when you auto, it will trigger the notes. So if you're able to hit a bunch of people with your abilities, it can stack up pretty quickly and you can do a huge barrage of little notes going in attacking the enemy. So always look, when you are trying to get a bunch of kill pressure, to build up as many notes as you can and then throwing out the bursts, and then maybe using your Q after you get that good amount of bursts, hopefully putting them in that 25% threshold. Now, one of the reasons why Seraphine is extremely strong is because she is able to throw out her CC over waves, and it is extremely fast moving. If you didn't know, some other champions that do something similar are things like Zyra. Her roots will go through minions, as well as things like Nico, where her roots will go through minions. But with Seraphine, her E travels extremely quickly, and you are going to be able to zone out enemies from CS quite easily because you are able to threaten your CC through minion waves. A lot of the times people just tend to use minions as a bit of a shield and look to play around them, similar to how they would play around like being able to dodge a Blitzcrank Q because you have a minion ahead of you. But this is just completely avoided when you're playing against Seraphine, because she's able to throw all of her abilities out over minions at a very, very quick rate. It's similar to a Lux Q binding missile speed, but it's able to go through as many enemies as you hit. So always keep this in mind, is your ability to harass people through minion waves is extremely effective. So playing against champions with very low to medium attack ranges, things like Vayne, things like Kaisa, you are going to be able to pressure them quite heavily out, as you wouldn't be able to do the same thing to maybe an Ezreal or the Caitlyn, or you at least would not be able to do it to the same effect. And that will wrap up my final tip, guys. I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. Give me some feedback if you like this kind of format, or a particular video they want to see, or maybe some tips that you've kind of learned on the way of playing Seraphine. I'd love to hear it. So with all that out of the way, guys, you take it easy and see you next time.